So our group did our project on Instagram and self-esteem and narcissism. My name is Zoe. My group members are Emily, Jasmine, Melissa, Marinelle, and Jacqueline. And next slide. Thank you. In a study by Nova Southeastern University in 2019, the objective of the research was to examine the association between the social media application Instagram and the psychological well-being of its online users. A second goal for researchers of this study, including Samantha Maxon and Paula Brochu, was to investigate what factors are associated with Instagram users' reports of anxiety and depression. The study used data from both users and non-users of Instagram. Another angle of the study aims to compare the negative and positive aspects of social media by using both new and past research to support its claims. And next slide, please. The participants of this study were recruited through social media platforms such as Facebook, Reddit, Instagram, and Twitter from January to May 2017. The study was advertised in a variety of ways, which included through social media status updates, blog postings, and word of mouth. Participants were invited to complete an online survey regardless of whether or not they had an Instagram account. The purpose of that was to compare participants with an Instagram account versus those without one. A total of 380 people clicked on the link to participate in the study. 379 participants provided consent, and 204 participants completed the survey. The final dataset consisted of 152 cisgender women, 44 cis men, 1 trans female, 4 trans males, and 2 individuals who identified as genderqueer. The majority of participants identified as non-Hispanic white or Caucasian at 70%, while 14% of participants identified as Hispanic, 6% were Asian American, 3% of participants were multiracial, 2% were Black or African American, and 3% of participants did not report their race or ethnicity. And next slide. The instruments used for this study were a survey and a scale. The survey asked about people's gender and race. The second instrument was titled the Instagram Anxiety Scale, as seen in Appendix 1 of Samantha Maxon's report. More specifically, a statement was provided to each participant, and each was asked to determine how applicable the statement was to the individual's experience. For example, one statement provided to each participant was, "I spend a lot of time editing my pictures," while the anxiety scale included the following options: 1 for never, 2 for rarely, 3 for occasionally, 4 for frequently, and 5 for very frequently. And next slide. In conclusion, the present study revealed that social media can be beneficial, as using Instagram resulted in less depression and anxiety for participants who used the application when compared with those who did not. The present study found that Instagram anxiety is positively correlated with general anxiety, but negatively correlated with depression. Instagram anxiety may be a moderating factor by which using the application increases users' anxiety. In addition, social comparison was a specific factor that contributed to users' depression in the current study. Therapeutic interventions targeting social comparison may be effective in reducing the negative psychological outcomes of Instagram. Overall, the present research identifies possible risk areas within the use of Instagram that should be addressed through awareness and with future interventions for people whose suffering is associated with social media use. Thank you.
My name is Emily and I did article number 2. This article is the impact of Instagram usage and other social factors on self. Some of the goals that this research had was 1. To promote self-awareness to mental health and psychological factors that can affect overall well-being. And 2. To show the connection between the amount of usage of Instagram and self-esteem depending on the length of a person's marriage, age, and culture. Next slide, please. For participants, the people that participated in the research were primarily married adults ages 18 to 30 who use Instagram daily and people of all backgrounds, including gender and race. The number of participants were over 500. These 500 people were emailed a survey. 269 surveys were collected and 191 of them were females and 57 were men. Next slide, please. For instruments, this research used surveys. These surveys included the Rosenberg Self-Esteem Scale, which gives 10 statements regarding self-acceptance and feelings towards oneself and rates them on a scale of 0 to 30. It also included the Kansas Marital Happiness Scale, which gives 3 statements regarding happiness and satisfaction in marriage and rates them on a scale of 1 to 7. These participants were given a week to finish the survey and also asked about age, ethnicity, length of marriage, and how many times they use Instagram in a day. Next slide, please. So the results for this research were sort of unpredictable. We learned that Instagram levels did not directly affect self-esteem, but gender did. We also learned that Instagram actually helped people with anxiety and depression. Finally, Instagram does not develop feelings, but accentuates feelings that one might already have. An example of this would be a person who already has a low self-esteem and is more likely to compare their lives to the ones portrayed on the media. Thank you.
My name is Jasmine Coleman, and I'll be referring to the article of Instagram, the effect on Instagram on self-esteem and life satisfaction by Nicole Dion. The goal of this study was to show after the following and seeing 15 celebrity posts on Instagram for 4 to 6 weeks period, how will the participant's self-esteem and life satisfaction be impacted? The hypothesis is that there will be a negative effect, which will show low self-esteem and low self-satisfaction. There will also be a decrease in survey scores when comparing data from the pre-test and the post-test, and this is due to the shift in the comparison groups. Instagram was chosen because there are a variety of things people see in their feed that can have an effect on their self-esteem. For instance, filters, Photoshop, celebrities, IG models, and influencers. Instagram is also a popular app that many young people use today. The participants in the study were 15 females, ages 18 to 25, and they were part of an undergraduate psychology research pool at a university in North Shore, Massachusetts. Ways of recruiting these participants was through extra credit in courses they were taking or flyers that were show promotions of the study that were posted on social media by friends and family. Some requirements for participating in the study was that you had to be a college-age student ranging from 18 to 25 years old, and you had to also be a female and be active on Instagram at least once a day. And you also have to be following 15 or less celebrities on Instagram. Some instruments used in this study was a disclosure statement that was given in the beginning of the study that reassured participants that their participation was voluntary and confidential. Also, some surveys were given, which included a self-esteem survey, which had 10 questions, a life satisfaction survey that had 5 questions, and these asked about, and another survey that asked about Instagram usage and activity. One of the questions also asked if the participants were willing to let the experimenter follow them on Instagram, which determined which group they would be put in, which was either the experimental group or the control group. So the surveys contain a 1 to 7 ranking 1 being that they strongly disagree with the question, and 7 being that they strongly agree with the question. Some examples of the questions that were asked is, on the whole, I am satisfied with myself, and the participants would write either a 1 to a 7 ranking on that, whatever answer applied to them basically. Also, another question would be, the conditions of my life were excellent. They would also give a number ranking their disagreements or agreements. These surveys were given from the Rosenberg Self-Esteem Scale and revised work and non-work life satisfaction scales. Post-tests were also given to allow feedback and comments about the study from the participants, and a majority of them were negative. After the 6 weeks period, the post-test was given, and based on the means of the scores, there weren't any significant differences in self-esteem and life satisfaction scores. There was a slight decrease in the experimental group when it came to self-esteem, but there was no change in the control group due to there being no manipulation period for the control group, where they had to, and the manipulation period was the act of following 15 celebrities. Life satisfaction had an increase for the control group. There was a slight decrease for the experimental group, though. And in the post-test, 24 of the participants gave responses about the study, which were majority negative. And some of these were responses was that they showed off their money and what they had and how they looked. Also, another participant commented that being a female and being asked to follow multiple beautiful female starlets did not make me feel very good about myself. The data may not show that there was a correlation between self-esteem and life satisfaction, but in the responses from these post-tests, it shows that there was an impact on self-esteem and life satisfaction. Young adults in society constantly use Instagram to post about the good in their lives and upload pictures of themselves. We're constantly following new people we either find attractive, funny, or entertaining to keep up with, and over time we can begin to compare ourselves to these people we see online. In society, we have begun to define ourselves based on the amount of followers we have and likes we get. This then creates space for comparison, which can have an effect on how we view ourselves and our lives. Constantly seeing celebrities and their lives on your Instagram feed, it broadens your social comparison group, which according to the study has a relation to life satisfaction. Even though the study doesn't quantitatively support the hypothesis, some of the comments made by the participants in the post-test does. Exposure to celebrities' lavish lives, where they constantly post their beauty and lavish lives, comparison groups shifts from the friends and family who are living lives similar to yourself to these celebrities you are following. There may have been a more negative impact on self-esteem and life satisfaction if the participants didn't follow any celebrities on their Instagram before the study. Some limitations include the selection of celebrities, feed annoyance after seeing too many posts at once from 15 celebrities, which caused participants to may have instantly scrolled and not checked their Instagram. There was also no men in the study, and 10 participants didn't participate in the surveys, the pre-test surveys, to be assigned to the correct group, so they were just already automatically put in the control group. Also, there was no random sampling done in this study as well.
My name is Melissa Barahona, and I will be analyzing article number 4, which is Using Instagram While in a Relationship, the Roles of Narcissism and Self-Esteem. For this study, the goal was to see what role narcissism and self-esteem play in predicting the attitudes people may have towards behaviors in romantic relationships, both current and possible. Some behaviors were analyzed on social media platforms like Instagram. There were 4 hypotheses for this study. Number 1 was narcissism positively predicts attitudes toward intention to communicate with possible romantic partners through Instagram while in a relationship. Number 2 was self-esteem negatively predicts attitudes toward intention to communicate with possible romantic partners through Instagram while in a relationship. Number 3 was narcissism positively predicts attitudes towards behaviors that relate to the current romantic partner on Instagram while in a relationship. And number 4 is self-esteem positively predicts attitudes towards behaviors related to the current romantic partner on Instagram while in a relationship. Next slide, please. The participants of this study were recruited online from a panel in Korea. They were given a survey during the 6-week period, April to June of 2016. Only Instagram users and romantic relationships were allowed to participate in the study, and there were 310 respondents, and only 300 of them were used for the final sample after 10 participants were eliminated due to the incomplete or inconsistent response patterns. 150 of these respondents were women. The age of respondents ranged from 18 to 34, with an average of 26.27 years. The average of Instagram usage was 13.6 months, and the average of the use per day for each participant was 47.6 minutes. Next slide, please. Instruments used. The 13-item Narcissism Personality Inventory, or the NPI-13, was used to assess narcissism. Participants rated the level in which they agreed with each item that was provided using a 7-point Likert scale, 1 being strongly disagree and 7 being strongly agree. In total, the NPI-13 scores ranged from 13 to 89. Self-esteem was measured using a 10-item 7-point Likert scale, 1 being strongly disagree and 7 being strongly agree. In total, the self-esteem scores range from 10 to 70, and in this study, the higher the score, the greater the self-esteem. Next, please. The attitude towards behavior was measured using 3 sub-constructs: attitude towards interaction with a potential relationship partner on Instagram and attitude toward approaches from a potential partner were established from Adjun's theory of planned behavior, or TPB. 7-point semantic differential scales with 4 items were used to measure attitude-related variables: good or bad, pleasant or unpleasant. The intention to interact with a potential romantic partner was rated using 3 items on a 7-point Likert scale. An example of the prompts given were: I intend to meet this person personally. 1 was strongly disagree and 7 was strongly agree. Adjun's constructs were used to evaluate attitudes towards certain behaviors involving romantic partners on Instagram, like attitude towards posting pictures taken with partner, attitude towards posting romantic partner, attitude towards disclosing romantic partner. They were all measured using 7-point differential scales with 4 items: valueless, valuable, unimportant, and important. The control variables were Instagram related, and they were open-ended questions asking participants how long they had been using Instagram and how long they used the social media platform a day. Next, please. Conclusion. There were many things concluded from this study, one of which was those who scored high in narcissism that are in relationships show positive attitudes towards interacting with potential partners, attitude towards approaches from possible partners, and likelihood of interacting with possible partners on Instagram. High self-esteem is negatively associated with attitudes interacting with possible partners online, towards being approached by possible partners, and intending to communicate with possible partners. Narcissism predicts online behaviors, linking the posting of romantic partners with the purpose of shaping narcissistic self-construction, in which people exploit relationships to enhance the way they're viewed. People with high self-esteem are less likely to post of only their partner, and unlike those who had high levels of narcissism, people with high level of self-esteem are associated with healthy mental views of self-worth. The overall conclusion, though, was that there are many personality traits that must be taken into account to determine the true relationship between narcissism, self-esteem, and social media. Thank you.
So my article is titled Instagram Use and Its Effect on Well-Being and Self-Esteem, and is actually a graduate thesis from Bryant University. The main goals of the study were to gain a deeper understanding of the relationship between Instagram and an individual's self-esteem levels. The study was also to analyze the role that social media plays in individuals and how it affects users based on activity levels. In this study, the participants consisted of a group of undergraduate students from numerous colleges and universities in the United States. These participants were actually selected through Instagram and Facebook, and researchers decided to take advantage of this and use social media as a mechanism to collect the data as well as the sample group. And this is because they figured the sample would be the best representative of the larger population of social media users. In addition to the study, faculty members from the universities agreed to administer questionnaires to their students in exchange for extra credit on their final exams. And a total of 411 questionnaires were completed, but only 359 of them had usable responses. And of these usable responses, 122 of them were male, accounting for 34% of the respondents, and and 236 were females, accounting for roughly 65%. There was also one individual who refused to disclose their gender, and this accounted for 0.03% of the respondents. And the average age of the participants was about 20 years old. Next slide. The study utilized multiple scales in order to get a closer look at the relationship between Instagram and its effect on self-esteem and well-being. The Rosenberg Self-Esteem Scale was one of the most predominantly used amongst respondents, similar to the previous articles in this presentation. Participants were presented with 10 statements and were asked to show their agreement level, and some examples of statements used in the questionnaire were, "I feel that I am a person of worth," and "I feel I do not have much to be proud of," which was reverse coded. Another scale utilized was Instagram intensity, and this gauged how active and frequent individuals were on Instagram and also measured respondents' emotional connection levels depending on their daily usage. This scale revealed that the average participant had about 250 to 400 followers and actively used the app between 45 to 60 minutes a day, so about an hour. And the next scale is the Satisfaction with Life scale, which gauged respondents' well-being. This included 5 Likert scale items that helped record participants' beliefs about their life. And some example statements included, "The conditions of my life are excellent, and if I could live my life over, I would change almost nothing." Next slide. This last scale used was a passive and active use measure, which measured participants' different types of uses for the app. And this differentiated active and passive usage patterns. The original questionnaire consisted of 14 items that determined whether one was using the app passively or actively. And active usage, for example, counted when a user would comment on posts, whereas passive usage pertained to users who would just view content and scroll without liking or commenting. Next slide. At the end of the study, results presented were that there was a significant positive correlation between active Instagram activity and an individual's self-esteem levels, as well as their well-being. And throughout the research, the intensity of Instagram usage was one that was present in the relationship that had a continuous effect on the user outcome. There was also a positive correlation between intensity and self-esteem and well-being, meaning that the more intense an individual used Instagram, the higher levels of satisfaction they experienced. And the study also concluded that it's not the usage patterns that affected users, but rather the intensity levels the app was being used actively. Next slide. And to wrap up what came out of the study, social media usage alone isn't the determinant of its effects on younger generations, but rather the activity levels. More and more individuals are also transitioning from text-based platforms such as Facebook to more image-based platforms such as Instagram. And this study shows that active Instagram use is positively correlated with self-esteem and well-being. Another significant reveal was that the higher user intensity levels, pretty much how invested an individual is with the app, the more enhanced of a sense of belonging and satisfaction feeling was present, while more passive usage of the app yielded lower levels of self-esteem and a reduced level of satisfaction.
Hi, my name is Jacqueline, and I will be talking about article number 6, Predicting Narcissism Through Social Media by Cameron Freglet. So the goal of the study was to discover if narcissism can be predicted through social media, and the behaviors being assessed included frequency of posts, the presence on social media, and how often they were posting selfies. And a link to this article is on the right here. So the method, it was 59 participants in total. They were all undergraduates at the University of South Carolina. 98.3% of those participants were female and only 1.7% being male. And the majority of the participants were between the ages of 18 and 21, with a couple people as outliers outside of that age bracket. In addition, 98.3% of the participants were Caucasian, with only 1.7% of the participants being Hispanic, and one participant did not answer all the questions, which resulted in variable degrees of freedom from analysis. So the instruments used, first they were prompted with a demographic question, so this included their sex that they were assigned with at birth, their ethnicity, age, class levels, so freshman to senior, current level of happiness, and days a week they typically exercise. These were all factors that could externally influence the result at the end. And then they were given an online questionnaire, and this asked them how many times a day they go on social media, what they typically post, so what that content is, which type of apps they use, how many days a week they post a photo, the motives that they have for posting a selfie, and lastly, how attractive they found their selfies on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the most attractive. And as well, they used a narcissistic personality inventory test, also known as the NPI-16. This is just essentially an accurate measure of narcissism. It's a bunch of questions saying either or, and they were given these questions in a 10-minute period. An example of the NPI-16 would be, I think I'm a special person, or I am no better or no worse than most people. So the results of the study, only 27 out of 59 participants indicated that they had posted selfies, and their independent t-tests confirmed that comparing selfie and non-selfie takers on several characteristics, they rated happiness, attractiveness, and narcissism. The analysis showed that there was no significant effects, and their other t-tests comparing social media platforms used number of types of pictures posted and social media usage per day. What they realized was that the people who uploaded selfies more often than the people who didn't actually used social media less. And the correlational analysis, there was no significant correlations between narcissism and the number of platforms used, number of pictures posted, or the frequency of social media usage. So the takeaway, narcissism in this study was not related to the measures of social media usage. The study was not able to support the hypothesis that narcissism can be predicted through social media behaviors. There have been mixed results in testing for narcissism based on social media behaviors, as found in the study and in recent literature. Requiring excessive admiration, thinking highly of oneself, and low empathy are all characteristics of narcissists that are consistent with much of today's social media use. So, some of the limitations of this study included there was a really small number of participants. That can result in a heavily biased sample. Secondly, most of the participants were Caucasian female college students. Had they broadened their sample pool, they would have gotten a bunch of, most likely gotten different results. And lastly, the lack of diversity, so race, sex, and age were also a factor in limitations in their results. Thank you.
And for our cohesive conclusion, these findings can help us infer that Instagram may help individuals with anxiety and depression by providing them with a sense of belonging. A negative aspect of using Instagram is the consequence of comparing oneself to celebrities and acquaintances, which can result in a range of self-esteem levels varying from low to high. Across the board, using Instagram does not directly cause a low sense of self-esteem, but may magnify the existing levels of self-esteem, whether they be negative or positive. Instagram users who present themselves with high levels of self-esteem sometimes exhibit traits of narcissism, which result in using the application for exploiting partners online, having little empathy for others, and excessively praising oneself. And in the following slide is our references. Thank you.